accept me. Okay, well, welcome everybody. My name is Monica Wusteman. I am the chair of the ICAHD UK executive. And on behalf of ICAHD UK, I want to welcome you all to this seminar, the second one we have had on resisting demolitions from outside Palestine. As before, we have the same team of members of our partner organisations, the Shoal Collective, Protecting Palestinian Families, Stop the Demolitions, and the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, who will be presenting this for us. Just a few very brief instructions for those of you who have not been with us before. You'll see that there is the chat function at the side of your screen, and that is what you use for asking questions and for presenting comments. Now, we have a very big audience this evening, so please, if you could be very careful to limit your comments to make them as brief as possible and as relevant as possible. And also the other thing you could do is, if you're asking a question, could you put question in capital letters at the beginning, because it will certainly help us to identify the questions. We have a slight sort of technical hitch with questions here, but we think we found a way of getting around. But you might have to be a little bit patient with us as we get used to it. Yes. I'm going to apologise in advance if I don't get all your questions. We're very busy, there might be less, but I can assure you that the speakers will all look at the questions and the comments and will respond appropriately if necessary. So this webinar, the second on this subject, there are two objectives really. One is to bring you up to date with all the developments, the various developments of the various strands of the campaign against JCB and its sale of bulldozers for the demolition of Palestinian homes. So it's an update, but also what the speakers will be doing is providing you with various ideas of how you can become actively involved in these campaigns. So, you know, we hope that you will gain a great deal of inspiration out of this and be able to contribute in a way you haven't been able to before. I'm going to go straight to our first speaker, who is Hilary Smith. Hilary Smith is a member of Sheffield PSC, and she works for Stop the Demolitions. Hills, over to you.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to talk about two things. One is about the complaint by Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights, and the second one is about the second aspect is to talk about the campaign targeting JCB dealerships. I think probably a few people aren't muted, so there's some interference, so it would be good if everyone muted and then we don't get interference and scrapey sounds. Thanks. So I want to say thank you to Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights and also some of the organisations in Palestine and internationally who've provided the evidence that has made Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights complaint possible. And that's Al-Haq, B'Tselem, and also Witness to Atrocities, which is an organisation I didn't know about until very recently. I think there's still some people that aren't muted. Is it possible for us to mute everybody?
Hilary isn't muted.
Okay.
Hilary, you're muted.
Okay, so I've so I got muted then, hoist by my own petard. Okay, so I'm just going to give a very brief summary. The reason is not because we need to know all the detail of this complaint, but because it's important to understand that because of the success so far with the process of legally holding JCB to account, it means that this is the time for us to intensify and to coordinate our campaign. There's a barrister, John Nicholson, I don't know if he's on this webinar, but he's a campaigner in Manchester, and he made the comment once at a demonstration that we can never rely on the law to provide us with justice, but that it's a useful tool. And I think that's really important to remember, that this complaint is highly significant, but we should embrace it as something to support our campaigning, not for us to stand back and go, oh, there's a complaint going on, so we don't need to do anything. So the complaint by Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights was in relation to the OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises. That's the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, and the UK government is a signatory to that, and their guidelines for multinational enterprises, including JCB. And there's a process within many governments and within our government for investigating complaints where businesses appear to have breached those guidelines. And there's an organisation within the Department of Trade, so this is a governmental organisation, called the National Contact Point, which investigate these complaints when they believe that there's some validity to them. And as you might imagine, it's not easy to get evidence of a type that will satisfy the Department of Trade that there needs to be a complaint. But Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights, with the support of the organisations and others that I mentioned earlier, have done that. And so far, there's just been an initial assessment carried out. That's a huge piece of work, but nevertheless an initial assessment that's found that key aspects of the complaint are material and substantiated in relation to JCB's machinery being used in Israel's illegal demolitions and also in settlement construction. So it is very significant. And I think it's also significant is that it has forced JCB for the very first time in many years to have to respond publicly. They had to respond in relation to the complaint because a government agency was investigating them. And they've also, because of the publicity, the national publicity that I hope you've seen in The Guardian and The Independent, because of that national publicity due to the complaint, they have felt forced to make comments. Not all of their comments are accurate, but they've made comments. And that's very significant because over a period of 8 or 9 years, JCB have completely ignored any approaches to them. Way back, War on Want wrote to them. Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights have written to them in the past. Individual campaigners and groups have written to them, and they've always completely ignored that. So this complaint is significant because JCB, the pressure is such that they've been obliged to respond. And always when an organisation that we are, if you like, targeting or campaigning against responds, then it's useful to look at what they're saying, again, in order to give us more understanding of weaknesses and points at which we can put pressure on. JCB, in their responses to The Guardian, inaccurately, falsely said that they were pleased that the National Contact Point had dismissed the claim that they were involved in human rights violations. That's absolutely not true. The National Contact Point has not found that. So that's one thing. Surprise, surprise, an organisation, a business like JCB is prepared to lie or bend the truth. The other things, if you do, and you don't need to do this, but if you want to do what I've done and read the initial assessment, it's quite interesting some of the things that JCB have said in their responses. They have accepted that there is clear evidence that some of their machinery has been used in demolitions inside Israel-Palestine. They could hardly fail not to. They have claimed, again falsely, that perhaps it's a minority of those demolitions that they're involved in. And the other thing they've said in their response is that basically, I'm summarising here, but this is basically the point, that, well, if their bulldozers or excavators weren't doing it, somebody else's would be. So we're reminded of people who say, well, if we didn't make the guns or the nuclear weapons or the whatever else it would be, somebody else would. But, you know, maybe that's information that we might want to use in our campaigning, those sorts of statements. And I think the other thing that it's important to remember is that this is a long and technical and legal process that lawyers for Palestinian human rights are going through. And we don't know what the outcome will be at the end of it. The initial assessment is that they are breaching the guidelines, but there's further steps to go. And we can see already JCB is a massively rich organisation. Their lawyers will be all over this case. And I think it's important for us to hold on to. We're not just talking about the law, we're talking about the ethics and the morality of what's going on. And whatever the outcome, we know that it is wrong for a business to allow its bulldozers to be used in these inhumane, brutal and illegal demolitions. So that's also important, not to get too caught up with the legality question, although the legality question is important. So the next steps, just again for information, the next steps in this investigation, and this is the process that the Department of Trade carries out, is that it offers, it's a strange word this, but mediation between Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights and JCB. If the mediation isn't taken up or fails, then there will be a full investigation by the National Contact Point. And that whole process, or those two processes, may take a very long time. I'm sure in the meantime, Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights will do what they can to keep up the pressure, but they can only work within the bounds of the investigation that's being carried out. Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights have made some specific asks of JCB. In relation to its sales of bulldozers to the dealership in Israel, and they give a way out, if you like, for JCB. So we can see how things will progress, but I think it will be a very slow process. Sorry, the other thing that JCB, just one other thing that JCB said, it's along the lines of, if we don't do it, somebody else will. It's, you know, we can't control what happens to our equipment once it leaves us, and that is actually not true again. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say at the moment, except to reiterate the point I gave at the beginning, that the importance of this for us, I think, is it says this is the moment for us to expand, develop and intensify our campaign. And that's partly because we know how hard it is to get into the media and to get in the public domain any sort of dialogue about Palestine that exposes what's happening in the occupation and the apartheid regime, and this is a moment where that's happening. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, or the main point really, is taking forward the campaign which is targeting the JCB dealerships in this country and potentially internationally, because there are JCB dealerships all over the world. I talked about this a fair bit on the first webinar, which is online on the ICAHD website. So I'm going to try not to repeat myself, but just to point out that that campaigning against the dealerships is important because the dealerships are the public face of JCB. And this isn't like a high street store. This isn't like going into Sainsbury's and looking at the grapefruit or the new potatoes or whatever that come from Israel. So this is a different type of campaign, but it's a campaign that is perfectly possible for us to engage with. There are dealerships all over the country, and many companies sell JCB bulldozers and other JCB equipment, but there are 5 companies that almost exclusively deal in JCB products, and Malcolm's just put those dealerships, links to those dealerships in the chat. But I think what will happen, I know it's hard if you're trying to make a note of things in the chat at the same time as listening to the speakers. What I think we'll try and do is make sure that this stuff goes onto the website later on. But there are 5 dealerships in different parts of the country: Scotland, England, and I think there's 1 or 2 dealerships in Wales too. And they either it's all that they do, sell JCB products, or it's almost all that they do. And there's an incredibly close and long-standing relationship between these companies and JCB, and I think a bit of a revolving door as well, in that people that work for JCB at one time might later on or previously have worked within the dealerships. So we're not talking about targeting somebody different. This is the public face of JCB, and if you like, the complicity is there as well, because they are part of a key part of the supply chain. So in Sheffield and the northeast, where I'm based, the dealership that covers that area is TC Harrison. And the dealership, which is a key dealership for the north of England, is called TC Harrison JCB. So, you know, the name says it all, really. And then there are 5 dealerships altogether: Holt, Green Shield, Gun JCB, Holt JCB, Green Shield JCB, and in Scotland and the north of England, Scott JCB. And they tend to have a main dealership, and then also other depots. And that gives us the opportunity to develop a national campaign, and it also gives us the opportunity to gear our campaigning, as we need to do, particularly at the moment, to whatever is possible for us. So in Sheffield, for instance, we just started off by writing a letter to our local dealership, and then followed it up with a visit. At the moment, in COVID times, many people may feel that they can't even do that visit, and that's okay. Just think how fantastic it would be that if every dealership in the country got letters from their local campaigners. And that's really not a difficult thing for us to do and to achieve. And I'm pretty sure that every letter that goes to a dealership, JCB company directors will end up knowing about it. That certainly was the case in Sheffield, that the manager at the depot there made it very clear to us that that they'd reported back to JCB HQ, if you like. So I think a first step is writing letters to your local depot. If you feel able, and people may not feel able to right at the moment, but if you feel able to visit to that dealership, photo opportunities are really important. They've always been important, but they're particularly important at the moment in the pandemic times, because we need to be sharing, as we are on this Zoom today, sharing how we do things. The other thing that people can do is target the company directors of the dealerships. So these are all separate companies, and if you don't, it's very easy to find out who the company directors are for any UK company and to find out a postal address for them. So I think Malcolm's going to put in the chat the companies, if people aren't aware of it. You just need to Google Companies House, and there's a locator thing there. So all you have to do is put into the search in Companies House the company that you're looking for. So if it's Gun JCB, which is in the sort of Midlands, North Midlands area, just put that into the search button, and then you will find the names of all the current directors. They will often have resigned directors, and you don't want to be wasting your time writing to those. So look at who the current directors are, and there will be a postal address. They have to provide an address for the Companies House register. That's a legal requirement. Obviously it might, I'm not talking about it being their home address, although in some cases it could be, but it will be their business address, which may well just be a correspondence address. So a good old-fashioned letter through the post. So I think, again, that would be a really powerful thing if we could build up the campaign so that every company director for every dealership in the country got a letter from us. The other thing is that while it's not possible right now for us to have big demonstrations or even small demonstrations, that doesn't mean that we can't do anything at all. In Sheffield, you know, like everyone, we were horrified by the news reports of the demolition of Humza village in the Jordan Valley, and I just felt like I just want to do something. The dealership in Sheffield is just on the outskirts of the city near the M1. It's not got any footfall, but it's full of bulldozers and it's full of JCB signs. And we spent a couple of hours, two of us, making a large banner which basically said, "Shame on you, JCB, your bulldozers have demolished a village and left." Yeah, so can people see the banner? So we spent a couple of hours making that banner, and two of us took it over there on a Sunday afternoon when the place was completely closed and tied it to the fence and left it there for hopefully the workers and hopefully the manager to see it on Monday morning when they came into the building. So I wasn't breaking any COVID guidelines. I was keeping safe, but I was again making another message, and that picture and some others have been shared on social media. And Tom Anderson, who I don't know if he's joined us yet, but hopefully will be joining us, who has done a lot of the research on home demolitions and also writes for the Canary. He wrote an article that I think was published yesterday that I had that photo on. So I think, yes, a range of things that we can do, that people who, you know, feel that letter writing is their forte, banner making, looking at where the dealerships are in your area of the country. For instance, in the southwest, I think the head office is Bristol, but there's a dealership in Exeter and several other places. You know, if you know people who either in a PSC branch or people who are ICAHD members or supporters, or other people that you know through solidarity networks, just ask them if they can write a letter. And we can share ideas, bullet points for the letters. I don't think I've forgotten anything. I might have done, but I'm going to shut up now and hand you back to Monica. Okay, so while Monica's coming back, I'm just going to, in the chat, somebody's asked where the dealership is in Kent. We've posted the 5 dealerships. I think Green Shield is the one for the south of England. So if you look on their website, they usually have a depot locator on their website, and you can look up where your nearest one is.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That was absolutely amazing. I mean, there's something for everybody there. I think everybody is going to find something way that they can contribute on that. And of course, do put questions up for Hilary onto the chat, and we'll be dealing with those later on after we've had the other speakers. So if you have any questions, other questions, keep posting them. Okay.
Monica, can I just say that the bottom half of your face is cut off?
Is that better?
Much better.
Okay, right. Right, well, we'll now move on to our next speaker. That is Sharen Green. Sharen is a member of the ICAHD UK executive, and also is very active in protecting Palestinian families. Now, Sharen is going to deal with the public aspects of campaigning, letter writing, etc., engaging with the media. So, and this is her forte. So we're looking forward to hearing Sharen's tips on this. Over to you, Sharen. Can you unmute, Sharen? Unmute.
Sorry, yes, I am 1/3 of protecting Palestinian families. And we came up with the idea of writing an open letter to the Guardian, probably, but to some, mainstream media when another story breaks. Fortunately, ICAHD UK came on board with this idea, and it's really taken off, and thank you very much to ICAHD UK. So the open letter will obviously make the links between the NSPCC and JCB, and it will be asking NSPCC to break its links with JCB. And the people we're going to target are people who work professionally with children. So that will be social workers, children's writers, children's illustrators, mental health workers, pediatric nurses, pediatric doctors, teachers, teachers of teachers, their unions and their professional bodies. And you can help with this. My list may not be exhaustive, so if you've got any ideas, let me know. Do you fall into any of those categories? And or do you know someone who does? I will send the open letter to anyone interested as long as they agree not to publicise it until we're ready to move on it. So please send me your email or their email. You can, if you don't have my email already, send it to Malcolm, our wonderful administrator at ICAHD, and he'll forward them to me, and I'll send you the letter to consider whether or not you or they would like to sign it, and we can take it from there. Yeah, Hills has talked about letter writing, and that's the other thing I'm going to talk about is how to try to make an impact on all kinds of people. It's good to let your MP know what's going on. He or she may be a friend of Israel, but some of that friendship towards Israel isn't particularly deep. It's kind of, you have to be a friend of Israel to be a Tory MP, but that doesn't mean that, over the years I managed to educate my MP, who became very, very supportive. There'll be a mass lobby of Parliament arranged by the PSC this month, I think, actually. You could join it. It's going to be a virtual meeting, and you could talk to your own MP about the demolitions, the recent demolitions, the JCB, the Lawyers for Human Rights, Palestinian Human Rights rather, and all that stuff is really good material. And do talk to or write to even your unions, your ministers of religion, your actual community. Let them know what's going on. Now I'm going to talk about contacting the media, which is my forte. Contacting the media, the mainstream media, has proved extremely difficult over the last few years, especially since the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance came out with its own definition of anti-Semitism, which of course conflates it with anti-Zionism. People are very scared to be called anti-Semitic, and you have people like Jonathan Friedland at The Guardian, who David Graeber, I don't know if you know David Graeber, he died recently. He was a wonderful guy, and he used to write for The Guardian, and he said that he wouldn't get any stories in about Israel-Palestine lately. However, once in a while, some papers do cover such stories, and The Guardian carried the story of lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights in the first round of their bid to expose JCB's implication of war crimes. Annie O'Gara, who you'll meet later, and who is married to an ICAHD member. He has 2 memberships. She doesn't have any. An ICAHD member, Nick George, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, because it's George with an S on the end. They both got letters in The Guardian following up on this story that the Guardian covered. So that was fantastic. Nick's letter was particularly poignant because he recounted witnessing just such a demolition. Then The Guardian and The Independent covered the shocking demolition of Herbert Hamza El Fawqa last week. Linda Ramsden, founder of ICAHD, got a brilliant letter in The Guardian, and Patrick Darnes, also a member of ICAHD, he got a letter a very good letter in the Morning Star. So when there's the opportunity, we can seize it, and that's actually what we plan to do with the open letter. The alternative media is a lot more difficult to make an impact on. They don't tend to have letters pages. However, we do have a mole at the Canary, 2 actually. Hilary mentioned Tom Anderson, who's actually joined the meeting, and you'll be hearing from him later, and his colleague Elisa Egret, and they are often getting, very, very often getting articles in the Canary, and many of them deal with Israel-Palestine. Tom got one in, he's had 3 recently about Palestine, and one of them was in this morning. I think Hilary said it was yesterday, but I actually got it on mine this morning. The Canary, if you haven't seen it, do have a look at it, and they're looking for sponsors. £5 a month will be very, very gratefully received. Annie and I both know people at the Electronic Intifada, and we tried to get something in the Electronic Intifada about the demolitions, but so far nothing's happened. Well, it's probably not going to now. So now I'm going to talk about local media, and this is where you come in. If, for example, you are staging a vigil or a demo outside, for example, your local JCB dealership, you can write your own press release and take your photo of your demo and send it in. Keep your press release short and punchy. Give it a sexy title, for example, Daredevil Great Granny Invades Factory. That would grab attention. Include a quote, and you can actually make up the quote if you want to, if you're writing the press release, but make sure the person whose mouth you put it in is happy with it. You mustn't send in a quote without clearing it with them. So this could be your intro. Christabel, suffragette 89, scaled the fence of Green Shield JCB because she wanted to speak to the manager who hadn't answered her letter. And blah, 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 you go into the issues a bit. And then you can quote Christabel. "I thought it so rude," said the former mountaineer and Bletchley Park operative. "They are destroying people's homes over their heads as winter approaches and COVID rages. And I think it's terrible that the NSPCC takes money from JCB. They're supposed to protect children from cruelty, not profit from cruelty to them, unquote. Put the references and your facts and figures under the press release and your notes to editors so that they can check out that what you're claiming is actually true. They'll have your email address because presumably you'll send this to them by email. Do include your phone numbers and make sure that you're always available to answer the phone, because they will, if they're going to publish, they'll 99 times out of 100, they'll come back to you and check it. So that's if you're doing an action. But now I'm going to talk about letters to the editor. One of the best read papers in a newspaper is the letters page. And letter editors are dying to hear from you. As long as what you say is true, and occasionally when it isn't, and you are civilized in your language. So be moderate. You don't have to exaggerate the facts are there. They speak for themselves. He or she will be delighted. Your letter will make a change from their daily diet of complaints about dog poo and parking charges. I'm not joking. Those are the things that people write to their local papers about. And now I would like to introduce you to a star of ICAHD UK, member Mayon Caldicott. I'd like to do a bit of screen sharing here, Malcolm. See if I can find what I want to share, please. Bear with me.
Is there a problem?
No, just I'm just trying to get this story up.
Okay.
I had it all ready beforehand, of course, but okay, I'm going to abandon that. I'm really sorry. It worked at the rehearsal, as people say. But Mayon and her husband Tim, they actually did an action outside their local Green Shield JCB plant, and it got in the local paper. They took a photo. It's not the best photo in the world, but you could see the placards. One of the placards said, JCB complicit in Israel's crimes against Palestinians. JCB weapons of mass demolitions. JCB profits, Palestinians pay. Palestinian lives matter. And in the strapline, it says, protesters gathered at the site accusing NSPCC of accepting dirty money from JCB. That strapline sums it up. And Mayon was actually quite miffed that they hadn't used the whole of the press release and that they'd actually gone to JCB and to NSPCC, and they got some kind of a quote from JCB denying everything, and NSPCC saying, oh, they love JCB because they gave them so much dosh. So I told her that a decent paper would always give right of reply, and that the Herald, it was a Farnham Herald, had actually elicited an answer from JCB. Not even lawyers for Palestinian human rights had managed to do that up until then. So that was really good. So she got a double whammy. She used her creativity, and she sent a follow-up letter which began, "Well done, the Herald, for eliciting a response from JCB." And it was published. So she got both things published. So good for them. They've done another vigil, and I'm hoping that other people will take this up, follow what Hilary has given us to do, and follow that up. Yeah. So that's all I'm wanting to say now. But Malcolm is going to show a film, and it's a film of JCB's in action, destroying homes, and it was filmed in last year, and it was sent to the CEO of NSPCC and the Board of Trustees. Thank you, Malcolm. That's not the film I was expecting, but hey.
We'll show that one afterwards, Sharen.
Yeah, okay. We are out of sequence, aren't we?
Right, now I think we have another film, another B'Tselem video, this time of a demolition in the South Hebron Hills. Is that right, Malcolm? I think that was the one that Sharen that we were going to show after Sharen's talk.
Right, yeah.
Is that correct?
ביוני 2013 פרסם מכון מידע אמריקני דוח שבו מדורגת ישראל יצואנית אמצעי הלחימה השישית בגודלה בעולם.
התעשיות הביטחוניות היום מהוות חלק מכריע בשוק הישראלי. תעשייה ביטחונית היא בהיקף מכירות של כ$10 מיליארד. מעסיקה גודל של 26,000 עובדים. אנחנו מובילים בכמה תחומים בעולם שסימנו אותם. במלחמת טרור, במלחמה אלקטרונית, בחינוך מומחה מדויק, בשליטה ובקרה.
רובם המכריע של אמצעי הלחימה יוצרו מסיבה אחת ברורה. מיקומה הגיאוגרפי של ישראל והאיום המתמשך עליה מצד המדינות השכנות מכתיב לאורך כל שנותיה צורך קיומי לפתוח תעשייה ביטחונית עצמאית כאמצעי הישרדות.
כל מיני מערכות נשק כאלה שפשוט נמצאו ויודעו כתוצאה מצורך תעשיות ביטחוניות בישראל כמעט באוטונומיה מלאה. זה כמו שמשפט המפורסם שישראל היא לא מדינה שיש לה צבא, אלא צבא שיש לה מדינה.
Okay.
I found a way to run my old computers with no hard drive.
Okay. Right, okay. So there they are in all their shocking reality, what a house demolition actually looks like, and there is JCB right in the middle of it. So this is what we're up against. I'm now going to ask Annie. Now Annie is a member of Sheffield PSC. She's also active in protecting Palestinian families and also stop the JNF in her spare time. Now Annie is going to dealing with the aspects of the campaigning against JCB that involve the NSPCC. So over to you, Annie.
Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Malcolm, for that reminder of what Israel's deliberate policy of home demolitions mean, and also of what the JCB equipment's role in that is. What we're really talking about here is the court of public opinion, and that is an incredibly powerful venue for JCB to be in the spotlight. And I would like to suggest 2 forms of action that I would invite you to consider in support of the campaign to break the link between JCB and the NSPCC. I'm talking here about addressing the directors, the board and the trustees of the NSPCC, not about anything that would involve children's homes or anything that would address children benefiting from the NSPCC services. And for everything that I say, there are materials on the website. So if you were going to make notes, you don't need to do that. For absolute clarity, we applaud the work of the NSPCC and we respect its commitment to British children's welfare. And the charity indeed has a well-earned reputation, and reputation really matters. As Iago says in Othello, who steals my purse steals trash, but he that filches from me my good name makes me poor indeed. And what we think is that the NSPCC's good name is at risk for its insistence on keeping its link with JCB. Now that link, that partnership, is based on very large donations made to the NSPCC in JCB's name, often with quite a lot of public fanfare, and from which JCB acquires a kind of status or kudos or reflected respectability because of its connection with the NSPCC. So the first action that I'm proposing is to challenge the trustees of the NSPCC. Now, you may think, why the trustees? They don't get paid, they're volunteers. But as anyone who's received one of the cut and paste letters that are going out from the NSPCC head office will know, it's the trustees who approve the criteria that NSPCC uses to accept or reject donations. So presumably the trustees can influence and change the rather limited criteria that we think NSPCC are using. Now, we've looked at who these influential trustees are, and we've identified a list of some of the trustees, not all of them, who have the sort of background, either the personal background or the career background, that we think many of us might identify with. So, for example, for me, I've spotted 2 trustees that I feel I can link with. One of them had the same job as me, a teacher with a responsibility in student services in an inner city college. That's a very big connection. Another is also a woman, very family orientated, involved in the local community, the local school, and a grandmother. So that's me. So I'm going to write to each of these women, care of the NSPCC headquarters, and the address will be on the website. And I'm going to mark my letter for the personal attention of this trustee. I'm going to write by hand with my best fountain pen, because I know that if a letter pops through my door that's handwritten, it immediately gets my attention. Now, my pitch will be an appeal on the basis of our shared values, our shared commitment to young people, and our love for children, of all children, not just British children. And I'm going to quote from 2 sources. One of them is the NSPCC values, and this is on the website, on our website as well. I've got a lot that I can pick from. NSPCC tell us that values only matter if they're put into action. And they say, we take a stand for what's right for children, like speaking out when something is wrong or influencing people to make a change. We campaign, we change laws when necessary, we lead public debate. So I've got a lot to choose from the NSPCC values. And then I'm going to give my trustees some evidence of what's happening in Palestine. And you saw some things in the videos there. It's well documented. The details from that recent demolition are truly, truly shocking, and they've received widespread coverage. There's lots of stuff in there about the children who have suffered, the families who have suffered. So I'm going to quote from that and point out that JCB have been active, that JCB equipment has been active in these demolitions for a very long number of years. And my request to the trustees I've selected is that they do what it says on the NSPCC tin, that they speak up, that they change things, and that they ask the NSPCC, indeed make the NSPCC change their criteria to include the export policies of big corporations that donate to them. And if they do that, they'd have to drop JCB. Now, the second action is to raise the issue with NSPCC's regional officers. Again, these are on the website and there are about 10 of them. Now, one of our supporters has done a bit of a trial run with this, and he sent a very short inquiry to the Leeds office, because we're up north, asking how he can raise a policy issue at a regional meeting or a regional AGM. Very simple, non-specific inquiry. He got a really nice answer asking for more details. So he explained that he'd heard about the links between the NSPCC and JCB, and he was worried about that connection. He said he'd seen the open letter written by SWAN, which is the Social Work Action Network, and that's on the website as well. There's another one as well by UK Palestine Mental Health Network. And he added that he knew that some people were getting word for word the same replies from head office, and he wanted to challenge this. The answer came back from the officer that they had no idea about this or what to do. It was beyond their remit, and so they referred it upwards. Subsequently, I'm afraid he got from the head office one of these cut and paste letters. So what's the benefit? Well, this regional office clearly didn't possess the off-the-shelf cut and paste response that was going out from head office. Maybe the matter is being kept safely quarantined in the London branch. But what contacting the regional officers does is it alerts the NSPCC structure that operates below the level of headquarters to these concerns, and hopefully applies some upward organisational pressure. Now, just a little word about these cut and paste letters. These are being issued from the top level of the NSPCC, from the Office of Income Generation, Fundraising and Engagement. And I think that word engagement is really important here. We feel that sending out the same letter to everybody is not acceptable practice. Everyone's been getting them. A doctor with a list of qualifications as long as your arm got one. The social work professional group got one. The UK mental health professional group got one, and a range of other individuals. Now, I know that in the educational contexts where I've worked, if somebody in the organisation was sending out such a quick and easy response that didn't address the specifics of the concerns, that would be seen as unprofessional. That would be seen as unacceptable. And so we've lodged a formal letter of concern with the NSPCC. And we've also pointed out to them that the Charity Commission and the Fundraising Institute clearly say that charities can exclude donors when those donors' values clash with the charity's values. So I'll just pick up some of those values as my final point. We in this campaign are standing up for what's right. And we do believe that every childhood is worth fighting for. We're speaking out when something is wrong. And we want the NSPCC board and trustees to stand with us and not stand with JCB as they are doing at the moment. Thank you. And I think Malcolm is going to show another short film before Tom comes on. Is that right, Malcolm?
Annie, did you want to comment any more?
I beg your pardon, Monica.
I just wondered whether you wanted to make any comment about that. I think
I'm just going to answer one point. Somebody wants to know about the links to the videos. They're all on the website in the resources that we've put up there. That's it. I think it's over to Tom now.
Well, I think you were commenting that this last video with JCB bulldozers was made in 2012, which shows just how
that's
they
true.
have been complicit in house demolition.
Yeah, for a very long time. That's right. Yeah, thank you, Monica. That's quite right.
So we're now going to round up with Tom Anderson, who is active in the Shoal Collective, Corporate Watch and Stop the Demolitions. Tom is going to give us some useful tips on use of social media, which will be particularly important for those of us like myself who are rather resistant to using it, but feel the need to do so as time goes on. It seems that it is obviously a very, very important way of putting the campaign forward. So Tom, can we hand over to you?
Sure. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Oh, you should be able to see me.
I can't see you, but maybe others can. Oh, there you are. Now you too.
Yeah, great.
Good.
Okay, well, thanks to everyone for all those amazing presentations, and it really would be great to see people taking lots of different types of action against JCB. And it's really like the right time to be doing that, as everyone said. You know, the heat's really up on JCB at the moment, and you know, if we were to be successful, this will be the first. If we were to be successful in getting JCB to commit to stopping their equipment from being used in demolitions by the Israeli military, then that would be the first construction equipment company which has taken that step in the history of the BDS movement, as far as I know. And I think we're probably closer to that than we've ever been in the past. So it's really the time, I think, to maintain a focus on them. And there's some really great ideas from all the speakers. Me and Elisa Eager, as have been mentioned, we're part of Shoal Collective. By the way, I don't work for Corporate Watch anymore. I used to be part of Corporate Watch. I'm now part of a project called Corporate Occupation, which me and some other comrades from Shoal Collective run together. And we did a piece of research in 2019. I'll just put a link in the chat, a book on resisting demolitions in Palestine with a lot of information about JCB. Take a look at that book if you like. It's downloadable from that link that I sent, or it can be bought also on that link. And okay, so moving to, oh, sound is quite poor. How about now, Malcolm? Is that better? I'm hoping the sound's better now.
I'm hearing you fine. I don't know about other people, but I'm hearing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all fine.
So I'm going to try and share my screen. Sorry, just to take a second. Okay, can people see my screen? So just like a very, very fast tutorial on how you might tweet at messages about the JCB campaign. Can someone give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Yeah. So, for example, if you wanted to write that campaigners are calling on NSPCC to stop accepting. You could try and write something more catchy than this, but from Homewrecker JCB. So you could, for example, give an @ and that would, if you put an @ address, you'll be given these options of different NSPCC addresses to @ to. So main NSPCC Twitter account is @NSPCC, but you could also put in the tweet at other parts of the NSPCC. NSPCC Scotland, for example, and that means that they'll get a notification in their Twitter account that you've marked them in the tweet. You could do the same for JCB. So, for example, so JCB machines is the address for JCB. You could put a picture in the tweet. So, for example, we've got a screenshot there of the video that we saw earlier, and you can also put a link. So, copy the link into the tweet too. But I mean, really, the point I'm trying to make here is that you can use these @ symbols to make the tweet come up in NSPCC and JCB's Twitter feeds, which which puts a spotlight again on the campaign, as well as sharing it with your followers. So that's pretty much all I've got to say, really. And I have to say, I'm not a Twitter expert, but yeah, hopefully that's helpful to people. And I'm going to stop screen sharing now. Okay, so I think that's all I had to say, really. Oh, and yeah, I got a direct message from someone, so yeah, I'll be in touch. And anyone who's got any questions to me, and I think to the other speakers as well, please go ahead.
Yes, I've been keeping an eye. There are lots of very, very useful and interesting comments coming down here for you to look at if you haven't done already. Some questions already been answered. I've got a note here of a couple that require an answer. Somebody has asked whether Michael Rosen has been engaged in the NSPCC campaign. Annie?
I think Sharen is looking into that. Obviously, Michael is such an influential person, so he's been very poorly, and we're delighted that he's improving. So I think Sharen is considering that for the.
Watch this space.
Yes, very good. The other one was somebody has made the rather novel suggestion that perhaps ICAHD UK might like to produce stickers which members could then deposit on JCB bulldozers whenever they pass them, which is quite frequently. Linda, would you like to comment on that? Sounds like a great idea.
Okay, here. Yeah, I mean, we do want to, I hope you can hear me. Yes, thank you. We want to collect ideas from you. That's excellent. We also have our member Mayan Caldecott, who will be working more closely with Hilary Smith in developing these campaigns. So we'll pass that idea over to you and then see what unfolds in the.
Very good. Well, there's just one other question. Wait, I don't know who it's from because Malcolm had to forward it to me. I'll read it out, and one of the speakers might all like to contribute. During the reporting of the demolition of the entire village of Kirbat Hums in the Jordan Valley recently, a UN representative in the region was quoted in The Guardian on the 5th of November. What is the role of the UN in the region? Is it just humanitarian? What is OCHA doing? Could the UN do more as an international body to prevent demolitions, such as deploying peacekeeping forces? I am aware that peacekeeping forces are deployed in conflicts, but the case of Palestine and Israel is not a conflict of equals, but an illegal apartheid occupation by a state with a mighty military force. I would be interested to hear your opinions. So, who would like to kick off? Linda, would you like to comment on this? Am I dropping you in it?
Yes, so OCHA, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, is under the UN, and it established its office in East Jerusalem during the Second Intifada to record humanitarian violations in the occupied Palestine territory. Puts it out. It obviously reports to the United Nations. The United Nations has other treaty bodies as well concerned with racism, social justice, the Human Rights Council, all come under the United Nations. The UN overall has had more resolutions against Israeli violations than any other country. The problem is that no action, even when there are votes in the General Assembly in favor of Palestine, supporting Palestine, things then have to go to the Security Council. There are 14 members there. Some of them are permanent members, which includes the United States, which vetoes taking action against the State of Israel. That's why we have this failing within that system. You know, it's like it keeps coming back, though, to the member states. The UK is a member state. We've got to account for these violations. If the UK was stronger and stepped up, and then we got some other countries, European countries also coming on board, calling Israel to account, it would really help get movement. It's one of the reasons why, as well, ICAHD UK is part of the European coordination of committees and associations for Palestine, working in Europe. It's a long process. You know, this is a marathon, but we keep at it. A final point I'll make, and then others can add as they wish, is that there is not a UN, peacekeeping force in the occupied territories. That's not there. So it is just the people who are monitoring the situation, reporting on the situation, and OCHA says to us, you know, when we take our study tours there, take the information, you use it in the country where you are to bring accountability, others have to say.
Just on the question of individual governments, I've noticed that James Tuitt from PSC is telling us about their virtual lobby of Parliament, PSC's virtual lobby of Parliament on December the 2nd, and there is a link if you want to join it. So that's one way of joining in. So take a look at that.
Monica,
Anybody else want to
may I
comment
add
on?
something? I think Linda's given an excellent summary there, and bodies like the UN and OCHA are tremendous moral reference points for us when we're mounting arguments, and it's very important for us to have that moral backup. But I think it was Richard Falk, who's a special rapporteur, who a few years ago stressed the role of civil society. That's me, that's you, that's us, because he recognised that governments sometimes let their people down. And so I think we have to realise that a lot of power resides in us. And I pick up Tom's point. I think Tom said the time is now. I think you never know what's going on the other side. You never know what discussions are happening in JCB. You never know what the NSPCC are talking about. And sometimes you can get to frustration and think, oh, are we getting anywhere? Why isn't the government doing something? We don't wait for them. I think Tom's right. The time is now, and it would be a huge, huge achievement if JCB were to say, we're not linking with Israel, because the damage to us as a company, as the reputation of our company is too great. Plus they face scrutiny. And for the NSPCC to say, you know, we're severing ourselves from JCB. So I think the UN is great, OCHA is great. There are reference points we should be, as individuals and as a collective campaign, can do.
Absolutely. Sharen?
Just to say, of course, that the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, is extremely important in Palestine because it provides healthcare and it provides education. And thank God we've got rid of the President of the United States. I hope we have, because he cut off funds to UNRWA. And you know, these people are desperate and they rely on UNRWA. That's all.
Does anybody else want to offer any comments on that? I'm now going to pass back to Linda, who is going to draw the webinar to a close with some information about our future webinars, etc. Over to you, Linda.
Right. Well, yes, once again, the time has just flown by. I want to thank everybody for attending this webinar, our speakers, Annie, Shireen, Hills, Tom, and Monica for leading us through today. This subject, again, has been very, very meaningful. Here we are, all these years, working on trying to end house demolitions. It's such a big subject. But if we can make a difference with these smaller campaigns, it'll be really meaningful in going on to end demolitions altogether. And so we've been learning our experience through on this to make a difference. So just in summary again, the information from today can be found on the ICAHD website. So check it out. Also, you can hear again recordings from previous webinars that ICAHD UK has had, very much concerned with demolitions in the occupied territories as well as in the state of Israel. We've also been giving guidance and lobbying MPs, so do check us out with your MP. We are grateful for so many people joining us today. Once again, there's several new people, so welcome, welcome. Stick with us. You know, and if you're not a member of ICAHD UK, please join us or find ways to support us. You know, our subject is ending house demolitions, but we also work for the end of the occupation, the end of apartheid, the end of settler colonialism with a just and sustainable peace for all people groups. So we are dependent upon our followers, our members, people giving us donations. Thank you very much. Now, in just the final moments, I'd like to mention plans for future webinars. Coming up, we'll be working with one of our partners, the UK Palestine Mental Health Network, which is planning a webinar looking at the trauma that results from demolitions. And a main contributor to this webinar is going to be one or two people from the Palestine Trauma Center based in Jerusalem. So they work there in Jerusalem and in the West Bank. As we get final details on that, we'll have it on the website. It'll go out on social media, but it's very much linked to our subject. So join us then. Now, we've heard today references to the fact that Trump should be leaving the White House. This is good news for Palestinians, but what can we expect from Biden? Well, there's already talk about, as Sharen referred to, the fact that UNRWA funding hopefully will be reinstated. There will be restoring other funds to the PA as well in aid, reopening the Palestine mission in the United States, return to the people and seeing what will be happen. But in the situation with both Biden and Kamala Harris, they have over the years pledged their support to Israel. So what is that going to mean? Yet we know that there is movement happening within the United States. There's many, many people who are Jewish that do not want to be associated with Israel and what's happening there. There are more critical voices now going into Congress. What will happen with that? What is the movement going to be there? So we're going to be having a webinar that is going to look at some of these issues. How is the election of Biden going to impact on our campaigning? And then in January, we are collaborating with Pluto Press for the book launch of Jeff Halper's new book, which is entitled Decolonizing Israel, Liberating Palestine, Zionism, Settler Colonialism, and the Case for One Democratic State. So a little bit on what to look forward to. I think that is it from me. So from me and ICAHD UK, I want to say goodbye. And Monica, how about a final word from you as well?
Yes, I just wanted to thank everybody who's contributed. This the chat has been absolutely fascinating and very informative, and to thank everybody, not just for being here, but particularly those who've contributed. And see you all next time, we hope.
Excellent. Thank you.